worked in London, Ontario, and I worked there as a teacher. So as a teacher, after a while, after taking some courses, you had the summer off. So this is discovered this property, and it was just a cow pasture at the time. There was nothing here except there was at one time a house where my house is now. It was a log house, but they moved it over to the property across the road. So, but it was similar. But at the time when I first doing it, it wasn't too much here. So yeah, so later on, if we look around, all these trees, I started off from little wee seedlings. When I lived in London, Ontario, I'd order the rootstock and put them in pots, and then I'd get the scions from an organization that was called North American Fruit Explorers. And it was just a magazine, a paper magazine that they sent out to you in the mail, and you'd look at it, and people all across North America say, oh, I discovered this really great apple in the hills behind my dad's farm, and it's really good, and they describe it and say, well, if you would like some of it, just send me $1 in the mail, and I'll to pay for postage, and I'll send you a little scion, and you can stick it in the fridge until it's grafting time. And that's what I did. So that's how I got about 25 to 30 varieties at one time that I had grown here that I grafted onto a rootstock that I had to get, which would take to the soil here is a little cool in the summer, in the spring once the ice melts and the snow melts, the water stays close to the surface and it's cold. So this clay soil here keeps it cool for a while. So standard or regular dwarf trees didn't last too well here, but a standard sized tree would. And I found this one that was from Russia, Antonovkov, which will grow in this kind of soil, and as a result they did well. That's the way the story goes, that one of the Russian astronauts thought this was his favorite apple. It took one of them to eat in space. So.
Oh, that was Antonovkov? That was his name?
Yeah.
That's the first one you said you started with, right?
Yeah,
you said
leaves, and you take a section of the new growth, the first year growth, and usually only needs to be 6 or 7 inches long. And then you would put that into a plastic bag or someplace so it just doesn't dry out, and you'd put it in a refrigerator someplace until you're ready to graft it. And the grafting process would start once the tree that you wanted to graft onto started to grow. Once the sap started to go up into the tree and starts to invigorate, and that's time to graft in, and they would connect. And grafting is actually pretty easy. Different kinds, different ways of doing it. Everybody should do it if they want. I mean, you could have a tree that would have 3, 4, 5, 6 different varieties of apple on it, but they don't have to be apple. And so depending on your rootstock, like the Antonovkos is a standard size tree, it means it's going to grow into a full size. If you're doing the malling or different rootstocks from various countries that developed apple trees, they developed them as far as size go. So if an orchard wanted a smaller tree, then you get an M6 or you wanted an M26. All these numbers were developed in England, but there's rootstocks from Poland and all around the world, the Middle East and everything else that people have developed to determine the size. And of course, commercial growers wanted small trees, easy to pick, a big volume of trees, easy to maintain, whereas my trees are all the old style. Big trees, you got to have big ladders, all the rest. But it's almost like an antique thing, and 50 years from now, there won't be too many big trees around except the mine and other people who've decided to plant them, because most people do not plant standard size anymore. They just plant dwarf ones. So on them, like here's the old tree, and here's the grafts. Like a V thing like this, and then you stick your scion in there, and then it takes off. And I did that with several of them. I think this is grafted on there too. Oh, here you go. Here's some.
I can see that.
See these two? This big thing, I just made a slit there and stuck them in. And so the whole tree I didn't want, so I changed it over. And up over there, another one. So it's all there's different ones. That's another grafted.
Wow. So this has like 4 different trees grafted to it.
Grafted it. I didn't, and it's just getting bigger all the time. I didn't like the apple on there, so I changed it over.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, I tried an experiment with some dwarf trees over there, and they were supposed to be hardy, and so far they're doing okay. They've only been in the ground about 4 years. And this tree over here, you can't really tell, but if you were to, I haven't been here for a couple years to prune, and so there's all new growth underneath. If you were to take that away, it's this old gnarly stump that you would think, how in the world is that stump of this tree still alive? And it used to have just one little twig coming out, one little twig coming out, and now look at it. You can't even see the old stump, and it's put out a new sucker. And originally, when I first came to this property, it was a big tree, and we used to call it picnic because you could sit under it and have a picnic. And then when they got ripe enough, you could shake the tree, and it would fall down, and you'd have a lot of apples to start making juice from. And so, same as this tree behind us is called it's a sweet bough, it's called, and People used to like to eat it as sort of a summer apple, a medium-sized one with the greenish yellow flesh, but it was taste very sweet when they ate it, and people used to love it. Actually, at one time when this was a log house, the school teacher used to live here and board here when she wasn't teaching school, and the kids at recess time would come racing over here at a certain time of year and get some apples, because this was one of their favorite early apples. So it's similar to Yellow Harvest, which is a nice apple. Right. It's translucent skin a bit, and it was a Yellow Harvest because it always ripened at the harvest time, when people were out working the fields, either taking hay off or combining grains and stuff, and these apples would always be brought to the dinner and lunch or for them, and they were always sweet and juicy. Yellow Harvest, so that's what they called that one. Probably 40 or 50 standard-sized trees and maybe 20 varieties of apples. I got one big row of Macintosh because I like Macintosh. A farmer found in southern Ontario, and his name was Macintosh, and it was a wild seedling in his fence row. He thought it was really good, and he shared it with his neighbors before it became an industry. He made money selling he grafted it into other ones and sold all these Macintosh apples. The newer varieties that they developed are totally different. They're more of a firmer flesh and a different kind of sweetness, where Macs and varieties like that, Spartan and that, have a bit of a tartness to it, which I like, and a lot of people do like still too, which you don't find in the newer apples. But the newer apples are still good. An apple a day keeps the doctors away. I used to keep a couple because I didn't like the doctor. He said to throw one out.
Who does?
I mean, everybody, when they start off in life, you think about different things, and I always used to like apples. I used to like, in the neighborhood I lived in, I'd go around and I knew where all the trees were, and I'd eat them, and I always thought, I'd see pictures of orchards and people picking them in the mountains or someplace nice like this. I thought, oh, that sounds like the way to go. Vinegar down to an alcoholic beverage, to a sweet beverage, to pies and dried, and butters and all the rest. Yeah, apples are a good thing. I taught at a special vocational school, so I taught a variety of subjects. I ended up as a woodworking teacher for a while. So that helped me develop skills to build the house. I built that house myself, post and beam, cut the trees down from this area, had them shipped up the line number 6 there to Malroo's sawmill, and he sawed them to the sizes I wanted and brought them back, and I mortise and tenon them and made them into the house that I live in now. But 1985 is when we acquired the land and started to build something, so we had been up a couple years before then, so
Has it changed a lot since then?
Well,
of course, it was a pasture.
It's changed from a cow paddock where they used to take the hay off, and then Elmer Caesar one year put a crop of barley in here, but other than that, it has changed. There's a lot of apple trees here. I've been going to Australia for the last 18 or 19 years on a woofing program. That's willing workers on organic farms. And so rather than in the winter time spending the winter here, I did a couple of winters, and got the snow and stuff just doesn't agree with my mobility. And so I said, I'll go somewhere warmer. So I ended up in Australia working on people's farms, and I did that on and off. And then I got married to an Australian woman over there, and we did that for a little while, and then found our own home. And unfortunately, in 2019, 2020, the big bushfire in Australia came through and destroyed our home there and stuff. So that put an end to that. But I plan to go back and establish something new there. So just because it doesn't snow except in the mountains.
So what were you doing like that day when the fire? I know it was more than the one day, but
that's right. For a couple of months, cottage that we fixed up, and only on 3 acres, but we grew vegetables and had a nice orchard and stuff. But so we knew this was coming close, but we didn't actually think it was coming north of us. We didn't think it would actually swing down our valley, and so we sort of hung in there. Unfortunately, it was a dry season, so we just collected rainwater off the roof of our house to drink, and it was in a big tank, but our tanks used to be empty. We used to have to buy water. Our tanker truck would come in and fill it in, so we didn't have any water really to defend it from this fire, like garden hose and stuff. And being gardeners, we put mulch underneath everything, and so there was all kinds of fuel that the fire was going to consume. And it came in, and we got a phone call and said, you better either get ready to defend it, or you better get out of there, or you're not gonna.
So you were left on your own to defend the fire, like? Yeah,
there was no fire department or anything, no. In the area surrounding it, it was a huge fire. Like, it wasn't just a little thing, it was like a tornado. The winds came and the wind just burnt everything. And so, all that dry fuel in the bush, not only where we were, but a couple of 100 k's north of us, that's where it all came from, and just swept down and just burnt everything, totally. House, workshop, orchard, nothing left. Nothing. And then I volunteered for a while on a blaze aid, which was a thing. There were people in the area who had cattle beasts. They were running around with no fences, and there's ones that survived the fire. And so with this group of people who got together, they went out and repaired the fences for them and stuff. But we used to go back into the lowlands and the mountains, and you'd be driving along and the place would be burnt down, nothing, and every so often you'd see a stone chimney. That's all that'd be left. Everything else was just too much. It was just horrific.
Peninsula, Ontario, we've got a bit of an orchard here, and every fall when we pick the apples and make juice, we usually have a visitor, a bear comes along. So we made this whirligig to show the bear and my wife are dancing away, celebration of the apple cider day. They're going pretty good, and there's the guy pressing the apples on his cider press.
Yeah. Anyway, they were fun making. Okay, just a second. Yeah, I could talk about the trees while I'm hanging the laundry up. Oh, but this is a very nice apple. Whoops, Spartan. It's in sort of like a Macintosh type of apple. It's not, doesn't taste like Macintosh, but it's that sort of flavor, a real nice flavor. Nice red color, a nice flesh. Produces a pretty good sized apple too. These trees over here are, I forget the name, I planted them a long time ago and I can't remember where they are now. Some of them survived and some of them didn't. And the veggies went on to be grown somewhere else. Beautiful day for hanging up clothes. And this one here too is a nice tree, but the apples weren't that great on it, so I did graft in a couple of other varieties to it. And they're starting to grow now, so that's one thing about if you don't like the apple, you can always try to change it over to something else. Around here there's lots of wild rootstock that have grown because of the bears have picked it up and deposited seeds or some other way. And so there's lots of them. If you want, you just dig them up and graft something else into them. This is a nice apple. It's called ginger gold. It's like yellow delicious if you look at it, but then it's a ginger gold, and it's really overbearing. Like it should be clean, pruned down if you want to get reasonable sized fruit. They're already small. We'll take them off and leave the bigger ones. Like these ones are a little smaller than the others. They can come off. So yeah, that's what you have to do if you want. See, like there's 3 little apples. So wouldn't that be nice if they're all big? But they won't get all big. They need to get the energy from the tree to get up there. So ginger gold. Yeah. Even the modern apples they make, they use genetics, so they propagate ones, but they choose only certain genetics to make this new apple. Right. So they're missing out on all those other things that don't taste as good, but may have a nice nutritional value to it, so on and so on. Yeah. Yeah, this is obviously a pear tree, and that one's Duchess over there, and this one you can see they've really grown this tree.
How's the leg doing?
I still got a bit of a rub on the one side that's kind of irritating me a bit, but that's alright, it'll be good. This tree here unfortunately got too big and split, but that one's called winter banana. And the first time you bite it, it tastes like artificial banana. You know, have you ever had a popsicle or something? Yes. It tastes like, they say it's banana, but no, it's not banana. But
right.
That's, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of them I should remember the names, but I forgot. So French people brought it over when they first came to Canada, and they're the first ones here in Canada back in the 1600s. Right. So they brought these trees with them. They grew really well, and they grew enough of them. They would put them on the ships and take them back to France to sell them.
Oh.
Because they grew well, so there's big orchards in Quebec and out of these. Or in Canada, it's a rusted apple. They're like they look totally different than the other apples.
Oh yeah.
They're started to get a bit of a russet.
Yes, I see.
Russeting stuff to them. They're very nice apples. Melbourne, I think is the name of this one. Melbourne. These are good eating apples. And you say it's too bad my memory's fading. And the last one here is called Apia, A-P-I-A, Apia, or Lady. And what it is, I just tried it as a novelty apple. Is they get to be a very beautiful looking apple, but stay very small. And people used to use them for decoration rather than eat. They're good to eat, but they don't get very big, but they're good to eat and they have a very beautiful look to them. And people put them at harvest time. They take them and use them in decorations and then eat them. Because we're on a bit of a hill here, I thought that's a knoll, Orchard Knoll, Mountain Orchard Hill, Orchard Knoll.